Greetings.
One look and I breathe. One touch feels skin deep. A picture perfect, underserving.
Greetings. Welcome to Mo Money Mondays. It's that time, 8 p.m. every Monday night here on All About Us Media. This is where you can find me. I am your host, Vonda. Delighted to see all of you tonight. Thank you for showing up, for coming out. We've got some good stuff tonight, some really good stuff. You know, I always get really creative with the guests, but tonight in particular. And so I hope you guys had a great weekend. I know that I did. I did a little traveling. So let me just toot my own horn for a moment. So my company is called the Jameson Legacy Group, and I am a financial broker, and I pretty much work anywhere in the nation. But I've now partnered with Casey Baker and Associate, along with the agency, and we have just opened an office in the Maryland area. And so we are very, very excited. We had the ribbon cutting yesterday, and it was really, really wonderful. So it's official. Looking forward to opening a New York office very, very soon. But for y'all in the Maryland, D.C. office, you need to come on by and see us. So tonight we are talking, of course, all things money, right? How's your money game doing? How your money game doing? So I have the pleasure of, I met a gentleman. How are we meeting people these days? Online, right? Social media. I met a gentleman, and the title of his book I found very fascinating. Honestly, before I learned the title of his book, I wasn't very interested. I'll tell the truth. And then when I saw the title of the book, it made me want to know more and dig a little deeper. He is the founder of a company called Crypto Woke Financial Sustainability Movement. And he's a publisher. He's written, I think, 5 or 6 books. He's been in the industry for a little more than 30 years. And that would be his books are actually on issues pertaining to the African diaspora in the field of history, spirituality, health, culture, economics. And I won't get into any more. You know what? I will not delay anymore. I'm going to bring him through. His name is Mbwebe Ishange. Welcome to Mo Money Mondays.
Greetings. How you doing? Hey,
Good. Happy now that you're here.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Happy now that you're here. So, did I say your name correctly? Mbwebe. Mbwebe.
Ishange.
Sounds like a drum beat. It does. It sounds like a drum beat. The way it rolls around, rolls off your tongue. Mbwebe.
People have had their fun with it in a good way. I enjoy it.
It's very noble. I love words. I love sounds. So,
Mhm.
where are you from? What is the heritage of this beautiful name?
Well, the name actually is an acronym, is a chosen name, and it's an acronym as I mentioned. And if you're familiar with a legendary rapper named KRS One, his name is also an acronym meaning knowledge reigns supreme.
Hmm.
Everything. So this goes back to the year 2000 when I was reading his book called Ruminations. And I knew what his name meant as an acronym, but when he wrote it out previously, I failed to mention, 3 years prior to that, reading his book, I woke up out of my sleep saying Mbuebe. And I didn't think anything of it, but there was a voice in me that said, just don't forget that word. Didn't even think that would be a name. I wasn't even in search of a name at that time, but I was, content with who I was. But 3 years later, I'm reading this book, Rumination, and I read Karis One's name, Najee Supreme over nearly everyone, and then my name, it hit me. Mbuebe acronym means mind and body working equally exudes blessings eternal. So if I keep my mind, my body, and my spirit working together, then the blessings will continue to come. So it's a daily affirmation. And that's something that I've been in a quest for. And as I travel this journey of trying to reclaim or understand what the meaning of life is, naming yourself has a lot to do with it. And if you look back in history, a lot of our story has been lost because, number one, they took away the name, they took away the drum, they took away a lot of things. So in that reclamation of naming myself on my own terms has put me on this path of self-identification and reclamation.
And we could all probably use a little bit more of that. It's so interesting because it's something I never really thought of. I'm a Jameson, but that would be so interesting to know the heritage of my true tribal name.
Absolutely.
Because there definitely was one, right? We actually have been given names of European names or names of whomever we were owned by, and I'll just leave it at that, right? And that was handed down. Yeah. So that's beautiful. I applaud you. Quite courageous as well. Okay. Not just to completely change your name. That's quite a move. Quite a statement. Quite a statement. So, Mbuebe, I understand that you're kind of a cool guy. You've done a lot. You've done a lot. You've got a lot going on, but we actually met talking about finance, but you have a background in marketing and for the MBA. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you're correct.
And so, okay, give me a little history on Mbuebe. Was that before the name change or after?
Before. I've been a graphic designer by trade, web developer, multimedia specialist since the 90s. Late 90s. I was working at the National Basketball Association for 12 years up until 2017. Then my life was changed. We'll talk about that in a minute. But as far as in addition to the arts and creative arts, I've been a lover of history. So I've always been trying to find a way to take those very thick books with those very small fine print and no pictures about history of our people and try to repurpose it in a way that was digestible for the current generation. So I created a magazine in 1993 called The Ghetto Times. We're celebrating our 28th, going on 29th year now. And I've written over 750 articles pertaining to the Black experience and just really looking at the historical analysis of it from a timeline perspective so that we can not just talk about how great we were, but let's talk about how we lost it. And then also, what can we use from that to now rebuild? We talk about how we're all kings and queens, but there weren't that many kingdoms out there. So some of us did some work, and that needs to be discussed because, it's about being real about our story that doesn't get talked about enough. And we all know that February isn't long enough for us to cover it. So that's what led me to also getting into brand identity marketing. So I love, creating visuals, visual graphic artist. That's what I am. And that led me into having a job at the National Basketball Association, among other jobs, working for surgeons, doing presentations and things like that for them. So I've always been a visual artist. And that's kind of, in a nutshell what I do, but it's spawned into the fact that I love to talk. I love to share information. And I just happen to be blessed to have a couple of topics that I felt were relevant to our experience. And as of late, it's been about finances, learning about finances, and just coming from my own personal experience is what got me into it.
I was just going to say your personal experience. I know for me, I did not choose finance. I kind of landed there.
Yeah.
I'm probably out of frustration, out of fear. I didn't want to be like so many folks that I saw in my community, especially the elders struggling,
Mhm. Yeah.
not being, the word fixed income. I don't know that I really understood that, but I sure did hear it a lot. And I always heard it
Mhm.
as a limitation. Well, I don't really believe that I understood the depths of the meaning of the phrase in my 20s, but I knew that it was limiting, and I knew that I did not want to be limited. And I grew up in a non-brown black community,
Mhm.
and they never spoke of limitation. That was
Mhm.
not part of the conversation.
Mhm.
And so literally I struggled. It's kind of like I did not know that my skin color uh, determined my entitlement.
Mhm.
I thought I was like all of my peers.
Yeah.
So, and once you have a sense of ownership and entitlement, you're classified as a brown or black person as, what are those words? Sedity,
Mhm.
bougie, especially if you're
Mhm.
educated, right? So,
Mhm.
so then going back to my community and seeing, some of the devastation and the limitations financially, and then, somehow migrating into this co-op that I've manifested and bought, and having the elders pass off, I was a little fear is what drove me. So I understand that with you, you teach personal finance. You're a business and career development, expert actually. And so now I ask, well, how did you get there? Because I fell into this. Was that a chosen career? Was this how does history tie in with that?
Yeah. I feel like I try to exist on a vibration of divine timing, and you know, March 13, 2017 was that moment where I was pretty much forced into this new reality. And as you mentioned, it wasn't a choice. I didn't choose it either. It happened. It was like I was
Mm,
tapped. And March 13, 2017, I was working at the National Basketball Association, 12th year in, thankless job, never got promoted, always got high ranks, but I was suddenly fired. I was fired on that Monday at 2:30 p.m. And their reason was because they read some of my material that's on social media. And again, the information is pertinent towards the upliftment and education or re-education of African people in our story. So they saw that as,
what?
yeah, I was blatantly told
Mm,
that that my material was racist and dangerous and
mm,
and rather than try to try to come, appease to this white woman who's the PR representative, I wasn't going to explain that I needed to explain my experience to her. I wasn't going to do that. They already made up their mind and were kicking me off the corporate plantation. So, of course, there's fear.
did you say corporate plantation?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what it is. And when I was let go, the first things on my mind is about, okay, my cash flow. Okay, how can I pay for this moving forward? And I took a moment and said, you know what? I have a little bit of money in my 401k. I had just got educated about the fact that you can pull out money before you're 59 and a half, even though you get taxed up to 5 times in New York City. But I was still said, you know what? I'm going to take out just a little bit to go for a couple months off of just, thinking about what I want to do. And when I went to go meet with my broker who was at Fidelity, he happened to be a fellow alum at the University of Pittsburgh, went to the same university, a younger guy, white guy. And he just starts telling me information, I mean, I had never heard of before on finances. One, he started telling me about how recessions happen and how they're not a fluke. Because I had lost $250,000 in the last housing crisis 10 years ago. in my 401k. So I thought it was just something that happened out of the blue moon, and that, okay, just re-up, and that's what I have been doing. Fortunately, I had a little bit something there.
Yeah.
But he told me about how recessions happen cyclically, and just really put me on the path of questioning finances. So what really did it for me was when it came to pull money out of my 401k, which at that point I was even afraid to think I could do it. I didn't even know I could really do it, but it's your money. When I did that, I had to sign up the application, and I had to put my occupation as, to pull out the money. And I said, well, hey, I'm unemployed. That doesn't look right. And he said, right, that doesn't look right. Let's just put that you live off your savings and investments. And when he said that to me, that's when I had this explosion, this conniption inside my body that made me realize that, wait a minute, this is how some people actually live of a different color persuasion. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't even know you could put that down as an occupation. We've never been taught that we can work for ourselves. We've been taught we have to work for someone. We go to college, get these degrees. Where do we go? To job fairs to work for someone. When we're young, they ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be this. That means you have to work for someone and be accepted by them in order to be able to work. So now I realize, wow, I can actually just be in the business of growing money. And when I did that, that put me on the path of realizing, you know what? I'm not going to go back to the corporate plantation and look for another one. I just got kicked off. My ancestors were telling me, look, this is not the path for you. The new path for you is to figure out what we all get up every morning to fight for or fight to earn is money. So as much as we are caught into trying to earn it, we still don't understand it. And that's what created the path of me becoming financially literate, taking the time out to read about in the history of money, learn about the Federal Reserve banking system, learn about the fractional lending system, learning about how banks also make money, but they also have arbitrage methods used against Black people still today. Like learning about the history behind the money system, and then learning how you can use some of these money methodologies that's been shared between white families for over 200 years to continue the abundance of finances in their bloodlines. Now we have privy to that same information, which has led me to write this book, Pot the Piss In.
I love it. What a great name. That's what got me. So guys, that's what I was talking about. This book. When I saw Pot to Piss In, that's one of the favorite phrases of our community, right? You don't pay, you can do what you want in my house when you pay bills, and you ain't got a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. I heard that so many times as a child. So I always thought it was a Southern thing, but I think it is a cultural African American. It's a Black thing.
Yeah, it's a status thing. I mean, because if you look at the etymology of it, it goes back to before we had underwater sewage and pipes and toilets. When you use the bathroom, you had people that had status had a pot in their home. That's where they would use the restroom. They would also have another pot to clean themselves, wash their faces, but they would use a pot to relieve themselves, and they take it and throw it out the window or take it out the door and throw it out there. Well, we were so poor as slaves, and even post-slavery, we couldn't even own the ground we stood on. So we absolutely didn't have pots in our homes. So that's where that etymology is saying that, you're poorer than poor when you can't even have a pot that will hold what you relieve yourself in. So I took that moniker and switched it. Instead of not having a pot to piss in, now we do have a pot to piss in regards to using those same money methodologies that these families have used, again, for over 2 centuries to, create bloodline wealth. Something that we haven't had that conversation, never been invited to the dinner table to talk about. Money is taboo in our communities, and it's been by design. Number one is because we're afraid to talk about how broke we are when everybody's broke. And then it turns into probably an argument. If you're talking to someone that owed you $20 from 6 months ago and ain't paid you back yet, you might end up in a fight. So we don't really talk about money because we're afraid to talk about it, although every day we get up and hustle for it. So that's been my whole moniker is, if you know about Wu-Tang and they had that song called Cream, cash rules everything around me. Well, I think it's now currency because it isn't just cash. But if currency rules everything around me, then why don't we have an intimate relationship with it? Why don't we understand it? And it isn't just tied to ethnicities too. It's the system. They don't teach us about money management in the school system.
Right.
I was an econ major. Yeah, I was an econ major for most of my freshman year. and didn't learn anything about money. And the only thing I learned about was supply and demand. They purposely, these institutions did not teach you about money, because if they did, then they'd be rendered useless. Banks even said that in their reports. They know that banking is important, but banks are useless. You don't need banks. If you know how to govern money yourself and learn how to make it grow, you don't need to put it in a bank, because they're using it anyway to make money off of your profits. Right. Banks don't sell their
to
money.
Do everything that they are not teaching you to do.
Absolutely. Right? Arbitrage. It's arbitrage. And that's the point, is that learning the history, it's one thing to talk about finances. Oh, I can help your credit score to go to 750, or I can get rid of all of these delinquencies or whatever. That's one thing. But the other thing is you might end up falling in the same trap if you don't understand the system, the historical system of how it's set up. And for people of color, particularly people of African descent in the United States, we're hit hardest because we know the least. And we're also discriminated still against because of our complexion. And we're not even aware of that. So it's really a big gumbo soup of, problems and challenges, but we're in the information age now. And that information.
So there's no excuse. I mean, we're really getting to the place where there's no reason why we don't know more.
Absolutely. It's just a rewiring of your mindset, because if you think about it, we can find 1,000,001 excuses why not to. Number one is, we work. Think about it. We get up and go to work and spend the most important days of our lives working for someone else, making money for them, and they give us a little peanut here or there. Yep. But when you come off work, you're tired. You don't feel like working or doing anything. So that's why we'll go through doing that for 20, 30 years. You get into your midlife crisis stage, because you realize I've been working for 20, 30 years and I'm still in debt. I'm still paying off college loans and I'm 40, 50 years old.
Well, that's by design too.
Exactly. That's my point. So if we don't understand the system, then if we don't understand the system, then that's why it's been able to assist them. It's been able to help them create that intergenerational wealth. And we can do the very same thing. I'm not against college. I went to college, I had a great experience. But the colleges of today are more like businesses than educational institutions. Yeah. The tuition, and more importantly, it's not a farm league like the sports industry where you have in the NBA, you have the G League. So if you come out, go to the G League, that could eventually get you to the NBA. When you graduate out of college, you're on your own. And just a stat I'd just like to also point out is the job sector. There's 3.5 million college graduates every year and 5 million high school students every year. That's 8.5 million graduates jumping into the labor force. But there's only, on a good year, 2 million jobs created per year. So that's letting you know there's a shortfall. There's no way the job market can supply the new breeds that are coming in. We haven't even talked about the people that are already in the jobs space that are looking for new jobs. Right. So when we look at automation and artificial intelligence, and how this is going to be taking over jobs as well, both blue collar and white collar jobs. How are we going to be able to earn and, more importantly, become sustainable? Because every 30 days, those bills are due. And if we don't come up with a plan to figure that out, then, we're going to be the ones out there in line in those soup lines, wishing that, hoping the government will take care of us.
And we already are. I mean, this has been going on for a couple of decades. However, it is really peaking, especially with technology soaring the way that it is. And we're definitely being replaced. I mean, it was happening before, but now, they don't even need servers or cashiers or, in McDonald's anymore. No more order takers, like down to, we learned it. However, it happened in factories. Right, auto makers, but now down to like we don't even need people to make your food, to prepare your meal is where we're going with this. So thank you for that. I also just want to say I absolutely agree with you. I speak of this often, being in the industry of finance as an adult, as a professional, in the industry. I'm very clear that we are not in those rooms where these conversations are being had. And I say, even now, there are times when all of a sudden the room goes quiet the minute we enter. Okay, so um, that is happening up close and personal, at any stage of the game, and it's unfortunate. But I want to go back just a little bit to something that you said when you talked about losing your job. It sounds like it was a blessing, the best thing that ever happened to you. I mean, because you went with it and you're still winning. But I just wanted you for a moment to go back and um, I'd like to hear your perspective on the fallacy of job security. When we're talking about being replaced by technology, with that.
Oh man, if we think about, if we look at our grandparents and they had tenure, they could stay at their job 20, 25, 30 years.
Hmm.
They had pensions. You know,
Pensions.
the pension model was a band-aid solution. I'm sorry, the 401k model is a band-aid solution to the pension model, because they understood that, well, wait a minute, as more people work for us and more people retire, we can't afford to pay them until they die. So that's where they came up with the 401k, to put the onus on the individual to handle your retirement through the stocks market. And that's what allowed the stock market to shoot up. But the whole
It
job
actually
security,
wasn't intended for retirement, believe it or
right,
not. It was a
right.
vehicle for the employers to be able to, okay, but yes. And
And no,
somehow it transitioned into retirement.
I was going to say, and that's not a new solution. They did this on the plantations. It put
Mm.
insurance on the slaves because they understood they were going to work us to death, and they knew they can only get a certain amount of time out of us. So they'll make money while they're alive, and then when they kick the bucket, they'll get another payout. This is all about monetizing the black experience. And it's not to say that, again, everything is against black, but sometimes when you look at history, usually the I would say the foundation of these plans are rooted in the suppression of people of color, in particular
Mm,
black people.
right.
But 10 years gone. In addition to that, companies want to have leaner, meaner machines as far as employees are concerned. When I worked at NBA and we had the housing crisis of 2007 to '09, we went from 3,000 workers to 1,500 workers. Half 50% of the labor force was cut. And then when things picked up again, you'd think they'd hire another 1,500 to get back to where they were. Nope, they decided to keep it at 1,500. We were doing the work of
And you
a
work
time,
harder. Mm.
people, and they figured this is the way it is. And who doesn't want to work in the NBA? If you don't like it, there's the door, because somebody wants to work at the NBA. And that's what they've been relying on. But that just gives you a depiction of how the job security is not there. In addition to the fact that, as you mentioned with technology, the advancements of it is that uh, automated cars, self-driverless cars. We're going to see the trucking industry is going to get hit severely. We're already seeing with COVID and the quarantine, the effects of that is that we're doing more online shopping than we are going to malls. So what does that mean? Malls are closing down. What does that mean? That means that there's no workers there because no people are there. You can drive into New York City Holland Tunnel last year this time, and there were a few people that could take your cash to come into the city. Not only did they go cashless, but they went peopleless. Now everything is, you either get scanned through cameras, or you pay through your Easy Pass, or they'll send you
Right.
the bill in the mail. So everything is becoming automated. And while we're thinking this is technologically a great marvel, oh, we're advancing, it's the fourth industrial complex that we're entering. What we're not realizing is that it's putting the everyday person in jeopardy of being able to put food on the table. For all those people that used to take cash at the Holland Tunnel, now have to find another job in another field, another entirely new space.
Hmm.
We go to banks now and we can see
Yep.
how the teller machines are taking up the places where tellers used to actually be.
Yes.
These are people that are being replaced by automation, yet these people still have bills. We can go to Walmart and they now have these places where you can bag your own goods. Well, what does that do? That means that the employer doesn't have to hire someone to sit there to scan your stuff. They don't have to pay them for lunch or breaks or for vacation time or benefits. because now the work is put on the consumer.
Right.
They understand that automation, all these things that are coming into play. If you look up a video of Amazon's distribution center, you're going to see about one or two people and all these other robots zooming through these tracks, putting all these orders together.
Wow.
Where are the people finding work to put food on their table? Whereas Jeff Bezos continues to rack in dough, they get the tax cuts and the tax breaks, but the average person is put in a situation where they have to figure out a whole new space to work in. And then even that's limited. So this is not to be David Downer and to say that, the sky is falling, but
but it's real. This is real. These are facts.
If you depend on, if you rely on a person to feed you, they can also starve you. And that's what we're looking at, is that we're in a society where we think we have to work for someone.
Ooh.
If I don't have a job, then I'm nobody. And if I don't have a job, that means I can't take care of my family. Well, we need to start switching that mindset, because there's a lot of folks that have been doing it in a different way for a long time. And it's time for us to have that kind of conversation.
I have to write that down. We rely on people to feed us. Those same people can starve us.
Absolutely.
That's deep. That's deep.
Well, they say that if you don't design your own plan,
Yes.
chances are you're going to follow somebody else's plan. And what do they have planned for you? Not much.
And we've been doing that. And we've seen what that has created for us. I feel like so many of us were even past the place of complaining. There were a couple of decades where you just complained. And, especially these millennials, they understand that there should not be an exchange of time for money.
Yeah.
And I think that's brilliant. And my other thought is that if COVID wasn't enough to get people motivated to think differently and make that pivot, do that paradigm shift in their thinking as far as their future, then I feel like there are going to be some people in trouble. But a lot of people are getting it. Yeah. And they're standing up and they're learning to use this technology, the information of the time, that is the climate, including our elders. I'm quite proud of, our elders these days. I don't know if you can remember, but 20 years ago, when technology was just at the brink of booming, you didn't have to use a computer. Smartphones weren't everywhere. There were people going without, but now, whether it's through surrender or choice, we're all beginning to get it. So, okay, guys, we are going to take a commercial break. You have been listening to Vonda here on Mo Money Mondays on All About Us Media. We're happy to have you tonight. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Najesti from Butter Me Essentials, Natural Hair and Body Company. We are located in Brooklyn, New York. We are a family-owned company, which is run by my husband, Vaden, and I. Do you have hair that is hard to manage? Having trouble with hair growth? Is your skin always dry? No problem. Butter Me Essentials is here with the solution. We specialize in hair butters, pomades, hair elixirs, shampoos, conditioners, luxury soaps, body butters, lotion bars, perfumes, scrubs, and so much more. All of our products is made with natural and organic ingredients such as shea butter, cocoa butter, mango butter, Jamaican black castor oil, avocado oil, Oregon oil, and essential oils. There is no sulfates, petroleum, mineral oils, or parabens, just all natural goodness. If you would like to order our products, check out our website at buttermeessentials.com, buttermeessentials.com, or call 646 646-524-3351. 646-524-3351. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Remember, like our motto says, you deserve to be buttered. Hello, this is
You're tuned in to Mo Money Mondays. I am your host, Vonda of the Jameson Legacy Group. We have been having some amazing conversation this evening with Mbwebe Ishange. And welcome back. So we were talking about, yes, the system. And job security and tenure. And, I'm going to let you finish. I was about to ask another question, but let's go back to that thought.
I mean, just to, it was, we can go into so many branches of it, but excuse me. The issue of tenure is something, again, that I think that we should be thinking about as far as it's the rat race psychosis. The rat race psychosis. We're told that, we need to join the rat race. We're supposed to, go to high school, go to college, get your degree, graduate, get that job, get that house with the white picket fence, and, vacation, have the family, and then live life happily ever after. But we're never really told, how do you pay for all that? And that's the issue, is that if you're living in a market that is no longer, our jobs have been outsourced since that started out in the 70s and 80s, where they started outsourcing jobs. So now it really doesn't care what type of degree you have or certification, and then people go back to school. They need to get a higher certification so they'd be higher qualified. But when they're doing it, they're incurring more debt. So when they come out of college or out of a graduate or master's program, within 6 months, those loans are due. And they're not, they might say, okay, you want to take some time off and pay it off later. Sure. But there's going to be interest rate tacked on that.
Right.
This is why folks are in their 50s still paying off college loans and paying off more than what they loaned out, what they took out.
Oh, three times quadruple, easily.
Absolutely.
But it's all part of the plan.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the point, is why I talk about history so much, is to see what the system is. And I really talk about, November 1910 in Jekyll Island in the state of Georgia, where we had the the Federal Reserve note, or it was called the Aldrich Plan, but that was where it was birthed. The Federal Reserve note, all that stuff was created in that moment, where you had some elite company, you had some Rockefellers there, you had J.P. Morgan, Schiff, you had a couple of other families that were there, Warburg, and they got together and designed the monetary system that we have been existing and using for the last century plus, that is designed to put us in debt, that is designed to enable banks to take the money that we deposit and create 10x deposits off of those deposits and keep the proceeds to themselves as they create new loans and keep the money to themselves, whereas you and I, the one who seeded the loan, get 0% return. Right. So while we're chasing degrees and certifications to hopefully be qualified to get this particular job, the job isn't there. We get the qualifications, we get the certifications, we can't get a job that we were certified for, so we end up getting a lower paying job. There's an estimate of 60%, 60 to 70% of baristas at Starbucks have bachelor's degrees. People didn't go to college to go work at Starbucks, but these are the jobs that are available. So all the while, you're also living in a climate where the cost of living continues to rise. Gentrification, white folk want to move back into urban cities, so they want to kick us out and raise the price. So we're facing so many monetary challenges, and it's all fixated on the fact that if we understood how money works and understand that you don't necessarily have to be in the rat race working for someone, hoping that you'll be there on a Monday and not get fired or let go on a Friday before the weekend or on a Christmas Eve, like once happened to me, that your job is secure. These things are out the window. So if that's the case, if you have a job right now, I tell you, I warn you to set yourself up to put yourself in a position where you can fire your boss before you get fired, because no employer is obligated to pay you for the rest of your life. One day you will get fired, laid off, or if possibly can retire. But most people aren't getting to the retirement age because according to the U.S. labor statistics, the average American keeps their job 4.2 years. So if you're 20 years old and you're just starting on the labor force and they're telling you every 4.5 years you're going to get a new job, by the end of your tenure of 60, 65 years old, you've had 10 plus jobs. And 401ks are tied to those 10 years of how long you're at a job. Most 401ks will not pay you if you're not there for at least 6 years. Yeah. So if you're gone every 4.5 years, you never really have a chance to get that match that they're allegedly giving you. So it's a lot of loophole things that are going on. If we understood that game, get in the game, get what you need, but have the idea of getting out.
Yeah, work for the man, but have a plan. Absolutely. Fund your own business then. Take that money, let them pay you. Yeah. But have a plan, have a build. It's so interesting. I just wanted to speak to, this debt that we go into. So yes, we go to school, we take out a loan for that. And now we've got to pay back that loan. And then we get the job, right? And the job is paying 6-7 figures. And we think we're doing great because we went to school and got these masters. And then we've got that loan. Now we've got a mortgage. Okay. And so then you've got to have a car and you've got to have, the furniture to fill the house. Now we don't have any liquid cash because all of our money is going to our bills. So what's next? They've even figured out the next phase. So what do they do for us? They give us credit. Okay. And so what do we have? Credit at 22% interest, right? Yeah. So we actually spend our lives paying 4 times the amount that it costs for us to live.
Absolutely.
Based on debt, loans, and credit cards. It's absolutely, it's mind-boggling.
And what better country to do in like America where, gluttony is on lit, is that, this is the land of milk and honey and material items and goods. There's a line of clothing or new line of phones or whatever every 12 months. There's something new. We always want to have the newest because what we feel we have isn't good enough. So we're the perfect candidate to get into this, to have this game played on, because we want to keep up with the Joneses. And it isn't just Black folk, it's Americans alone. Americans spend more money but have less than $400 in their savings account because we're living off for the moment. And that's because we've never been taught about the power of what money can do if you use it to work for you, opposed to you working for it.
Right. And it's interesting. I was on with a client yesterday who truly could not understand this concept of your money making money, and said to me that my money's in a bank and at least I know where it is and I'm not spending it. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow. Yeah. So are you saving your money? And I mean, and once again, this is brainwashing. This is conditioning. It just boggles the mind for me. But, at the same time, I constantly have to work on my heart space, my compassion, and so that it's so that I can have the attitude that is required to help people.
Yes.
Even with the simplest idea that may be mind-boggling to, for me, but is really detrimental for the person who honestly does not know. And I actually had someone admit to me today that they have just not paid attention. They just ran the other way whenever it came to budgeting or figuring their finances, or they just, they were in the moment, living life in the moment and being happy, joyful, peaceful. And I'm all here to say, be happy, joyful, and peaceful. Absolutely. But money's not right.
Right.
You will not, that joy and that peace and that happiness is not sustainable.
It's not.
It is not sustainable.
That's
So this Apatopissin, um, how's it doing? How long has this been on? How long have you been published?
I this book came out in September of 2020. So it's been out just
Okay,
over a year. And I actually released the audiobook version about 2 weeks ago. So we have an
great.
audiobook version as well, and we have the ebook and digital PDF. So yeah, I think the audiobook gives it a little better of experience because I know people are on the go and they don't have time to read or have or be motivated to read. So if you put it in your phone or in your car when you're driving to work, you can get some lessons as you're going. So the power of just trying to adapt to the technology and try to serve this information in ways that are palatable for the people, for the demand. That's what my goal is.
Well, I thank you for that. The people, thank you for that.
Yeah.
One of my goals, my determinations is to be able to travel and do my work and service people in my travels. So audio is important for me because I drive throughout the country. So I appreciate that. And I am able to learn so much in the process. But you have another book
Yes.
that we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Who is do I get this right? The Boule.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I understand that this is the history of America's first Black fraternity
Yes.
and the derailment towards African liberation. And that's a heavy subject right there. Period. I'm like,
it's loaded.
I'm a little scared, but it's okay. Let's swim through that. Let's dive in.
Yeah. Again, history buff. I love history nut, really. I love history because if like as one of the principles of Adinkra symbols, you might see a Sankofa. You might have heard of Sankofa means in order to go forward, you need to go back and figure out where you were before you know where you're going. In order for us to know where we're going, we need to understand where we've come from. And I've really honed in on the fact that being a history nut, I haven't seen a lot of history focused on the era between emancipation, 1865, and the first 30 years after that. Because this is when we went from picking cotton to being, in my words, I think we've been promoted to mental enslavement. We went from that physical enslavement to mental enslavement because now we bought into a system and
Yes.
we don't need to get whipped anymore, but we do buy into the system and do their bidding, a la agitation propaganda. Agitation propaganda, just to the point previously, is that when they put out something so much and so often, you believe that that's normal. So we've been told that putting your money in the bank is the safest place to be. If you did a little history, you know that in the 1930s, look up the Depression. The banking industry did not have a great reputation because there were bank runs. Banks were going out of business. People were having money in banks, and the banks lost all that money. So people were putting the FDIC was created out of the fact of trying to create that confidence back into the banking system, a la the Federal Reserve System. But coming back to history and the Who's the Boule, the Black experience, and you talked about how people perceive you if you aspire to be educated and all this kind of stuff. But we have the fraternity and sorority life. We have these secret organizations. We have the Elks, the Masons, the Alphas, the etc. However, there was an organization that's very seldom talked about. It was exposed in the 1990s by Steve Coakley, a reporter out of Chicago and then the DC, who used to be an assistant to Harold Washington, who was the mayor of Chicago. But the Boule also is a Latin term that means advisor to the king. And the Boule is also called Sigma Pi Phi. It was founded, I was an Alpha. I joined a fraternity in college, Alpha Phi Alpha. It was what I thought was the first fraternity in 1906.
Okay.
And when Omicron chapter, University of Pittsburgh. And I was a member for 7 years. And that 7th year is when I learned about the Boule, and I realized that I couldn't sit on the fence and be Greek, a Black Greek, and then also be African centered. For me, I felt that was oxymoronic. So I had to make a decision. And that decision was based upon diligence of understanding what the Boule is. The Boule was founded May 15th, 1904, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, by six doctors, six Black doctors. These six Black doctors actually worked for well, basically it's a Black version. If you've heard of Skull and Bones, or if you've heard of the Illuminati, and I know people, oh, here we go, conspiracies, but this is history. This is real history that we need to look up, because unfortunately, we've kind of bastardized conspiracies, and people think, oh, it's a conspiracy, so it's not true. If you look up the history timeline wise, you'll see some of these things are really happened. So we have Skull and Bones. If you look up who Skull and Bones, what that organization is, it's a white organization, a white supremacist organization. And you have these Black men who wanted to create a Black version of Skull and Bones in the name of the Boule. From the Boule, we have the four subsidiary organizations. We have the Alphas, the Kappas, the Sigmas, and the Qs, not in that order. And then we also have the AKAs, the Deltas, the Sigma Gamma Rhos, and the Zetas. And now they've added Iota Phi Theta. So these organizations, first of all, there's not a such thing as a Black Greek. If you do your history and you understand the history relationship between Blacks and Greeks, it was not harmonious. The Greeks came into Africa with well intent of taking over through hook or crook, murder, theft, maim, all those type of things, and plagiarism. So our story has been changed, whitewashed, and then sold back to us in a package with a European extension. So from that, we have these Black organizations that say that they're Black Greek organizations, and they're Black in everything you see about it. But we look at the symbology, the symbolisms, the rituals, all of them date back to the days of Greece. And I use examples. If you look at the Delta Sigma Theta's shield is a big thing, because symbolism is telling you right then and there. On the Delta shield, which is a Black American female sorority, rather, you have a white woman on their shield. And this white woman is named Minerva. If you look up the Greek history of Minerva, Minerva is the queen of wisdom. Well, we learn in the history that Minerva is a carbon copy replica Greek version of Neat, an African goddess. So the question is, why wouldn't a Black sorority put a Black woman on their shield instead of a white woman? And that's because of the indoctrination, the self-hatred of thinking that Africa, we were just sitting there with flies in our eyes and malnourished and slaves, opposed to being the originators of science, mathematics, architecture, agriculture, etc. We were these pioneers of these things. So what better way to have Black folk acting like white folk that makes white folk feel like, well, they'll never take us over now, because they don't even know who they are. And this is something that is happening systemically, because people get emotional when I talk about Black Greeks, because they're part of one, and they're like, look, I'm like, this is before
I can imagine. Yeah.
This is before you even born. This is hundreds of years before you, 100 years at least before you were born. So remove the emotional and look at it from a historical context. And because of that, when we talk about this power that we allegedly have, of all of the, I think it's up to 5 million BGLOs, Black Greek Elected Organization members, active and inactive, we still have no power. We own no corporations. We're not hiring anyone. We're still working for somebody. I can give me a resume. I'll see what I can do. That's as far as it'll get. Whereas, where's this power that we're talking about? Where's this think tank? Where's this talented 10% that W.B. Du Bois talks about when he actually took it from a white man by the name of Lyman Morehouse, who came up with the talented 10th whole etymology of that. So we also look at why the Boule was founded. And it was founded to counter Marcus Garvey's movement. Because Marcus Garvey was all about trying to put us in a position where we could self-emancipate by our people and our legacy and our culture. W.B. Du Bois was a true hater of Black emancipation. And that's something that people don't like to swallow. And I
Wow.
understand it's
And you
hard.
understand why, right? That's
Yeah.
that's a lot.
We were
That's
told
a
that we were told W.B. Du Bois was one of our best. You know, Carter G. Woodson, you know, the founder of Black History Week. He was in the Boule.
Goodness.
So we have these members: Arthur Ashe, Bill Cosby, all of these notably astute men who we look to as being the epitome of, or the example of what a positive Black man is in this country, are part of this elite organization, and they have been in position to keep us from Africanizing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I know that that's still a problem because we still don't want to call ourselves African. We barely want to call ourselves African American, right? We'll say
Well,
Black.
yeah, we didn't choose that though. But let's be clear.
Absolutely.
We
Absolutely.
did not choose that name for ourselves. So
Absolutely.
I'm a Black woman all day, every day. Like, you know.
When it comes to geographically, we don't want to associate with those people over there with those flies in their eyes and the malnourishment, and they smell because they don't have deodorant. We see them as different, but they don't see us as different because complexion is all they matter. You think a white person cares if you're from Cleveland or from Ghana? They don't care. They see us as Black, and that's the problem. We don't, and because we don't, this is why we still sit separated and not knowing who we are and not knowing who's done what to us.
Wow. Oh, this has been incredible. How about this, guys? Mbwebe Ishangi. You are a plethora of information. A historian. I had no idea. I do hope that you'll come back. Can we do this again? Because we didn't even get to the history of the Statue of Liberty and that real deal. You know what I mean? Can you shed, because people don't know about that. They do not know about that. How many times that statue had to be sent back because it looked like somebody. Okay, right? Okay, right. So we need to do this again. This is so fascinating, so interesting. Ashe, thank you so much. Thank you so much. You'll come back, yes?
Absolutely.
You'll come back. Okay. Anything you want to leave folks with before we wrap?
Yes. Thank you again for the opportunity. Thank you all for the listeners, present and future. And if you are looking for any more information in regards to finances, you can go to cryptowokemovement.com. If you're interested in history, you can go to theghettotimes.com. That's DAGHETTOTYMZ times.com. But I look forward to coming back. But really, it's about disseminating the information out to folks.
Yes.
There's some things that we've never had. Our education has been coming from a lens not of our own. And that's why re-education is important. Doesn't matter what age you are, you can still learn. You can always go back and learn. And
you can
yourself.
Start now. You can just get started, you all.
Let's get started. Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Ishangi, thank you so much. It has been a true pleasure. Perhaps you'll come back and share some of your course study with us.
Absolutely.
We'll see you again real soon. All right, guys. How was that? Amazing. And there's so much we don't know, but I am here to make sure y'all get the information because the time is now. We are not in the dark anymore. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. You've been listening to Mo Money Mondays with me, your host, Vonda. Please follow me at JamesonLegacyGroup.com. You can get me there through Facebook or IG, or check out my website, www.JamesonLegacyGroup.com. It has been a pleasure. Of all the places you could have been, I am so happy that you have stopped by here with us tonight. Be safe, stay woke, and live each day with intention.
Pillow Throw and Tuck. It's handmade by myself, and you only can get it here, and it's patent, and it's only here at Rococo Design. It's like a regular pillow, or you can take the blanket out like so, fluff up the pillow, open up your blanket, wrap it around yourself, and then you can lay on your sofa and relax with your Pillow Throw and Tuck. When you're done with it, just flip it over. When you don't want the blanket anymore, you just fold it over twice Fold it over twice again. Fold it over. And tuck it in the back. And there you go. You're back to the pillow throw and tuck. Rococo design.